Hello there! Hi, I'm here today to review Winter by Marissa Meyer. This is the fourth and final book in the Lunar Chronicles series, not including the novellas. If you don't know what the Lunar Chronicles are, basically a bunch of sci-fi fantasy retellings of fairy tales. Obviously we have Cinderella, we have Little Red Riding Hood, Rapunzel, and Snow White. Because this is the finale book, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave for spoiler purposes if you have not read this far in the series. I just don't want to spoil you, I'm sorry. You have read through Cress. You've read through Cress and you're like, I don't know, man. Should I read Winter? Yes, it's wonderful. It's great. I think my initial rating for this, it's so hard to say, but I'm gonna give it like a 96, I think. It was pretty A+. It was great. It gave me some good feels. It's very long, like 800 pages. Like I said, this is the retelling of Snow White. It's very good. Probably my favorite in the series. So if you have read through Cress, but you haven't read through this one, go read this one first and then come back. This is the first book that I've really read in a long time, like since Passenger. I have read Nimona, but like this was the first real book that was really big and extensive and feel-worthy, you know? So it was really weird to get back in the reading swing of things with this. However, I'm glad I chose this one because it slayed me. It was so freaking good. I loved it. It took me about 3 or 4 days to get through it, just because I had to take a lot of breaks when reading this book. Like, it was very hard for me to focus and sit down and like read straight through. After about every chapter, which is like every 10 pages, I just like sat back and was like,
I'm so stressed out, I can't read right now.
Like, this story, it was not easy to get through. It was just very intense and stressful, and I was worried the whole time about everybody. So I want to start and talk about characters, because in this series, and in this book in particular, characters are the most important part. The world building is kind of important, however, I would argue that the characters make this story. If this was a story with different characters, I don't think I would care nearly as much as I do right now with these characters. Obviously, we have a bunch of couples, everybody matches up with somebody, which, you know, it is what it is. I love it. They're really cute together, so I can't argue. Favorite couple? I don't know. I don't really have one. Like, every time I'm reading about a certain couple, like, I just am so in love with them. I really like Thorn and Cress's story because they're just so cute together. But, like, Scarlet and Wolf are just so intimate and, like, adorable. But Cinder and Kai are, like, so cute. And Jason and Winter make me want to cry. Like, I just can't explain. I love them all so freaking much. Jason and Winter are newbies, the new people in the series. So when we finish out Cress, we have met Jason, we have met Winter. Winter is seen as this crazy girl who we don't know anything about. Jason, I really didn't remember anything about him at all, like at all. So it's been like a year and a half since I've read Cress. So going into this, I was like, I hope this goes well because I don't remember a thing. I love Jason and Winter together. They're just so wonderful, and like it was really great, I think, because we came in with the like the stereotype that Winter was gonna be crazy and like she didn't know what she was saying and blah blah blah, and like it proves that like she is kind of insane, but she has like a standing, that's not the word, she has like an anchor throughout this whole thing, and that is Jason, and he really cares about her. This scene at the end where Winter gets the antidote from Jason and Jason like carries her into the bathroom to give her a nice little bath. I was listening to You Are in Love by Taylor, obviously, and like, oh god, the feels were so strong in that moment. And then at the end, of course, when Winter is like in her mini coma, whatever that is, and Jason's like, all right, I'm gonna do the true love's kiss thing, I'm gonna bring her back to life, it's gonna be great. And then she wakes up and he looks at her and he's like, damn it, Winter, were you even asleep? And she's just staring at him. Let's talk about Cinder and Kai, because obviously they're adorable together. I just love them so much. They were the initial couple, and I'm just really glad that at the end he's like, would you maybe want to be empress someday? And she's like, well, I don't know, maybe I'll start a republic and come see you. So cute. Kai is just super cute, and I love him, and I love how he finally like switched gears from being like, no, Cinder, you're a cyborg, I hate you, you're not Celine, and then he figured out she was Celine and he was like, JK, I'm gonna rebel against Levana, it's gonna be awesome. And then like during the wedding scene, my favorite Kai moment of this whole book, Levana is saying her vows and she's like, I will love him and cherish him forever, blah blah blah. And Kai snorts out loud. He's like, oh, that wasn't supposed to happen. I just really appreciated Kai in this book. Cinder. So Cinder is simultaneously a genius and the biggest idiot in the world. Like, she had some great ideas and she had some moments where I was just like, wow, you really thought ahead in that moment. Like when she recorded Levana being all gross and then she played it back later for everybody to see, that was cool. But like the scene where Levana and her are facing off with their guns at each other's heads, and Levana's like, ah, I give up, it's fine, whatever. And Cinder believes her and doesn't shoot her, and then Levana stabs her in the heart. I was just like, oh my gosh, Cinder, you're an idiot. But I'm glad she's queen now, glad that all worked out. Let's talk about Scarlet and Zev, or Wolf as he likes to be called. I love them. Their story is like the saddest because every freaking time they get together they get ripped apart and it just makes me want to cry. The reunion scene between them though, in the sector place in the alleyway with Winter, like I just was so emotional about that. And then they get freaking torn apart again and Wolf becomes a real wolf and I was like losing it. I couldn't handle it. But like the whole time he's like, man, the red-haired girl, she's important, I know her. And so I was totally imagining her ripping her to shreds when he saw her the first time, like later in the fight. And he finds her and protects her and I was just like, oh god, I love you. But then, honestly, my favorite part of their whole storyline is at the end of the book when they're like hanging out and Scarlet tells Emily and she's like, yeah, I'm dating him, he's my boyfriend. And Wolf comes in and he's like, you said we were dating, what's going on? And she's like, is that a problem? He's like, basically he asked her, he's like, do you still want me as a wolf? Like, I'm horrible and ugly, don't look at me. And she's like, dude, yes, I love you, you're awesome. I was just so happy. Thorn and Cress, the bays, the wonderful, my faves. I think Marissa said that Thorn was like her favorite character and like, I think I agree. Thorn, the whole time, anytime Thorn was mentioned, I just was so excited. I love him so much. I really, really loved him and Cress in this book because the whole time they're like going against each other and Cress is like, oh, I love him but I can't let him know because clearly he doesn't love me. And Thorn is like the exact same way. He's like, well, I love her so much but like obviously I can't say anything because I'm not good enough for her and like she would never love me back. Idiots, such idiots. I really love the scene, obviously the kissing scene, where Thorn is like, I thought she was you. I said that because it was you. I love you. And she's like, wait, no, this isn't right. What's happening? And then they got separated and then, like I can't even name actual things that happened between them because just like their whole story makes me happy and I love them and they're so cute. Yeah, so those are like the main characters. Obviously we could talk about new characters like Kinney, who is pretty cool and I loved his part in the show. In the book. This isn't a musical. Obviously we have Levana, who is the devil. I love Torin. He was so great and cute in this story. Like the part where Cress runs into Kai and she's like, help, help. And Kai's like, let me think about it. And Torin's like, dude, like, you know you're gonna help her. Just do it already. Let's not waste time. And Kai's like, all right, you're right, let's go. I have a couple favorite plot points. I've already named a couple of them through all the couples and stuff. Honestly, the whole book was just like anxiety ridden, plus some cute scenes with couples and friends. Like honestly, that was it. I was just so anxious the entire time because like literally, I was really happy the way she did it because there were so many good things, but at the same time, literally nothing went right. And it was just so stressful the whole time. I just was, very anxious and I couldn't read without taking a break very often. I love the cake scene. Like the cake scene just made me so happy because everybody was together, everybody was happy, everybody was really cute and pretty, and yes, I love that scene so much. Especially the part where Kinney comes in and he's like, the captain and his crew are here to see you, and Thorn is out in the hallway and he's like, I knew I could make him call me captain. This is just great. Also, side note about Thorn, I did not really realize that he and Flynn Rider are the same person technically. I mean, they are. They're really the same person. So when I like figured that out, I was reading it and like Now I can't unpicture it. Like, Thorne is Flynn Rider. But he's also Gilderoy Lockhart. So I don't know how to, like, match it up, but he's both of those people. I kind of told you about some of my favorite, like, couple-y stories. Like, honestly, my favorite parts were all the couple parts where they either got reunited or proclaimed their dying love for each other or kissed. So, you know, you remember them. You remember those scenes. Aiko, just in general. I forgot to talk about Aiko and the characters, but Aiko is really great. I love her. I love her mood changing contacts. I love how she gets all of Levana's dresses and she's like, actually, I think I'm gonna donate some of them. And Cinder's like, yes, my baby, you're grown up. I love you. Honestly, I can't remember a lot of plot points because it was so long, and like, I liked all the plot points. They were all really good. I thought it was really well crafted the way she did the plot, because going into it, you're like, oh my gosh, how do you fit in like 800 pages? That's so many pages. How do you keep writing? But when I interviewed Marissa, she was talking about this and she's like, basically, like, she just couldn't stop. Like, it had to be that long because that's how much was going on. And like, I totally agree. And reading it, it didn't feel like 800 pages because it went by so quickly. It made sense to be 800 pages because there was that much stuff going on, and it didn't feel too long. It didn't feel like it needed anything more. Like, I would have gone for an epilogue, but we'll get it in Stars Above, hopefully. Honestly, I think it was just really well crafted, and it did fit well with the Snow White storyline, but like, it also tied everything together really well. And I don't know if people are disappointed in this finale because I have been avoiding spoilers for a long time now. However, I mean, I don't think you can be disappointed necessarily unless you're like totally against the whole couples for everybody kind of thing, which I can maybe see, but like, I think it worked out fairly well, and there was enough destruction without there being like real character deaths that it just, like, logically it did make sense. Cause like, they almost failed like 100 times and like everybody lost a finger in the end. But I think it made a lot of sense the way it went through, and it wasn't, I wasn't reading it going like, this is impossible, this could not have happened. Like, it made sense, and that's all I ask for in a finale most of the time, because if it doesn't make sense and logically it's too good to be true, I usually don't appreciate it as much as this time, where it's like, everybody suffered a lot and they came out on top. I'm good with that. So there are a couple concepts and themes throughout this book. There weren't that, I mean, like, I didn't try very hard to find that many. I'm starting out slow for these book reviews. Obviously, friendship and love plays an important part in this book. I thought it was really interesting, the part where Levana is talking about love with Cinder, and she's like, LOL, love is war, and I'm like, whoa, so deep. But honestly, the only thing I could think about at that moment was State of Grace by Taylor. And I was like,
love is a ruthless game unless you play it good and right.
And Levana did not play it good and right. I thought it was just super great to see how love played an important role, and friendship. Like, friendship in this book is equally as important as love. I just love it when my camera cuts off and I'm doing serious sociological discussion. I love how friendship plays a more important role than romantic love in this book. Like, obviously we have everybody separated into couples, and it's like a huge part of the book. Like, people kiss, people love each other, it's great. However, I would argue that friendship plays a more important role than romantic love. Even though there are kissing scenes and such, I find that there are more scenes about friendship and more about, you know, platonic relationships than there are about romantic lovey-dovey kiss relationships. And I really like that, because personally I don't like to focus on romance as much, even though it makes me happy to read about and stuff like that. Like, I don't have that in my life, and so it's more relatable for me to read about friendship, and it's more fun, I think. I think the friendships in this book are just so great to read about, and they just make me happy. Like, the way everybody interacts with each other, the whole group, I just want to like bring them into my room and hang out with them for hours, because they're just my buddies. And of course, love conquers all and love wins, so it's all good. So obviously we also have gender. Gender does play a role in this series, in case you didn't know. The main people I want to talk about, though, are Wolf and Cinder. Cinder just defies femininity from the beginning. Like, she's still a woman, and she still does, you know, want to become queen and dress up in pretty dresses sometimes. But for the most part, like, she's this mechanic, and she is dirty, and she wears boots and pants all the time, and it's kind of like frowned upon in her society to be like a masculine female. And it's just super cool to see her work against these stereotypes that women need to wear dresses, that women need to be pretty all the time. Like, women can like mechanics, women can do man jobs and like still be a woman and still identify with that womanly figure, I guess. And so it was really cool to just see her stick to it, because even though she does become queen and she does wear dresses, like even in her discussion with Kai at the end, she's like, yeah, I'm not gonna dance in a dress, like it's just not gonna happen. He's like, all right, I'm cool with that, I can handle it. So let's talk about Wolf. Wolf is a great masculine figure because he is simultaneously hyper masculine and alternatively masculine. So throughout the whole series, obviously he comes as this wolf character, and in the end he like transforms into this full-grown wolf, and that's like who he is. He's very violent. He is drawn to red meat because that's what they program him to do, and that's what men go to. And basically he's just very typically masculine. Like, he's not feminine at all. However, I would argue that he has this alternate masculinity that is kind of feminine as he is in his relationship with Scarlet. He's very vulnerable around her. He likes to get intimate with her. He just constantly needs reassurance that this relationship is still happening and he's still in it, you know? Every single time he'll just go through it and be like, Scarlet, like, is this happening? Like, do you still want me? Am I good enough for you? Like, can I come to the farm? Do you even want me on the farm? And Scarlet takes on this, like, more dominant role in the relationship, being like, no, it's okay, like, I still love you. So it's interesting to see Wolf go from this hypermasculine guy to a vulnerable alternative guy who needs to be reassured from a woman, which totally goes against every kind of masculine stereotype ever. And I just think Wolf is really good at defying gender roles, and he does a good job. Scarlet also does a good job because she's more dominant than submissive, which also kind of goes against femininity. Femininity is way more submissive than dominant for the most part in stereotypical situations. That's the way femininity is viewed. So it's really cool to see Scarlet be like, no, I'm gonna be the dominant one, I'm the alpha, you should probably listen to me because I'm cooler than you. So the next part of our series, we want to talk about fighting against expectations, because this is a theme that runs throughout the whole series, but mostly throughout this book. Cinder obviously has a lot of expectations on her. She's gonna be queen, she's supposed to be Princess Celine, so she has the expectations of the people, she has expectations from her friends, but more than anything she has expectations from her family side. So Channery is obviously like the worst thing in the world, Lavanna is the devil, and so like Cinder kinda, you know, you would expect her to be kind of evil just because she's related to that. And she talks about it all the time. She's like nervous that Lavanna is gonna rub off on her because they're related. However, this kind of goes into play with nature versus nurture, because Cinder was not raised on Luna. She came from Earth, and she remembers most of her life on Earth. She's also raised as a cyborg in this abusive home with Adri and Pearl and all of them. And so it's really interesting to see her kind of find out who she is and fight between, you know, I'm related to Lavanna, I'm related to Channery, I should be an evil queen. However, I was raised this way, and so I know how the oppressed people feel, and I want to fight for that, and I want to be a good queen. And so it's really interesting to see her fight against all those expectations as she goes along with it. Thorn fights against expectations all the time, especially this book, because in the previous books he kind of doesn't show it as much. He kind of has this theme throughout the book where he's trying to gain kind of approval from Cress without her really knowing it. And so he goes along and he makes these comments where he's like, yeah, but I'm a criminal, like I'm a bad man, I need to make myself better for Cress. And in the end he goes the full way and he's like, hey, like I have a job now, I'm paying for this ship, I'm gonna take care of you, I'm a good guy now, like you can believe me, I'm not gonna go bad anymore. And it's super interesting to see him kind of grapple with that, because he really isn't that bad of a person, I don't think. Like, he saves his friends and he is super sweet to some people. But like he just sees himself as this bad man because he is a criminal and because he's wanted in all these countries and he's stolen things. And of course we have Cress, who's like, no, like you're not a bad guy, like I don't think you're a bad guy. And so it's really cool to see him, he ends up fighting against the expectations and being this good guy rather than a bad guy. So he falls more into Cress's expectations than like society's expectations for him, which is good. Additionally, Winter kind of has to fight against expectations. She has a similar nature versus nurture thing going on, because she is actually raised on Luna. So her nature is different than Cinder's, however it is her nurture that it's kind of similar to Cinder's because both of them are abusive, but like technically Winter is raised by Lavanna, so you should think in the end that she would be evil because she was raised by Lavanna and grew up on Luna. However, she's fighting against those expectations too, that she could be evil, She could be crazy. That's another expectation a lot of people have on her. They just stereotype her as the crazy girl. And so she's trying to work against that. She's trying to embrace it at the same time. I think it shows a real interesting side and perspective about mental illness. It kind of reflects on the idea that, you know, is it something that's fixable? Is it something that makes you broken? Maybe, maybe not. In this book, I really, really loved how Jason is like, whether you have it or not, like, it doesn't matter to me. I will support you. Like, I don't think you're broken. I don't think you need to be fixed. But, like, if I can make you feel better, if I can make you happy and safe, like, that's what I want from you. And I think it's really important to talk about that when talking about mental illness. Mental illness comes across often as being something that people want to fix and people want to change about people. And then there are people on the mental illness side who are like, I'm not broken. Like, I don't need to be fixed. I don't need medicine. I'm fine. And I think there should be a happy medium like this where it's like, okay, I accept you and I accept your mental illness, but like if there's something we can do to make you better, make you happier, make you more safe and all that jazz, like we should do that. And I really, really liked how Winter, she was trying to fight against these expectations of being crazy. And in the end, she's finally like, you know what, I am crazy, but she's like embracing this new type of technology to see if it'll help her feel better. And I just really loved, I guess I really loved Winter because she definitely symbolized to me like mental illness, whether it's like actually schizophrenia or if it's more like depression, anxiety kind of thing. It's arguable. I think it could be anything really. But I just loved having that in there because I feel like there are a lot of fictional fantasy characters who just don't have that. Like most fictional fantasy stories don't deal with mental illness at all. And I feel like that's something that's missing a lot from literature. Like, honestly, even though it's great that we're getting more queer literature and we need more queer literature, we need more about mental illness, I think. And I really liked how this book kind of brought that into play. I also wanted to connect this book to other books. I thought long and hard about this, and the only thing that came to my mind was The Hunger Games. I know a lot of people have compared it to The Hunger Games. I think I was looking at Trina updating her reading of it, and she kept thinking about The Hunger Games. It definitely makes sense. Like, honestly, the Luna Capitol, it's very similar to the Capitol in The Hunger Games. Like, they dress really crazy, they put on these fancy glamours, and it's definitely the Capitol. Like, we have the Capitol in this book. Additionally, Cinder basically tries to storm the Capitol. So, like, the whole time she was doing this, I was just like,
turn your weapons to the Capitol!
It felt like Mockingjay, honestly. I think they're both different books, and they're important for different reasons. The Hunger Games centers more on, like, the world, I think, and more on the oppression and the politics and the government and all that stuff. And it's, even though it is focused on the characters, and the characters are great in that series, they don't really focus that much on it, whereas in the Lunar Chronicles, I do feel like it's more about the characters than the politics itself, because the politics are more vague, and the oppression is more vague, and it's not as important, I think. It's just more about the characters and how they react and how they work together and all that stuff, which is great. I love that. I think The Hunger Games applies more to present day oppression problems and society than the Lunar Chronicles, because the Lunar Chronicles is more just like I said, characters. It's fantasy. It's about oppression, but it's really not about oppression, not compared to The Hunger Games. Like, The Hunger Games is literature about government oppression. While they have similar aspects and they both have a crazy capital and a crazy dictator at one point, I do think the Lunar Chronicles are very different in content than The Hunger Games, and it's more focused on characters. It's more focused on fun than, you know, the oppression and all that stuff. Which brings me to real life connections, because this really does connect to the real world, even though it doesn't necessarily connect to the same things that The Hunger Games does. So I kind of already connected this to mental illness. I think that definitely is a major theme throughout this book that relates to present day. Not enough fantasy books have mental illness in them, so I'm really, really pleased that this was put in there. Even though it was more of a schizophrenia aspect than anything else. But I also think we don't focus enough on schizophrenia as a mental illness, just because, like, we're so focused on the big ones, which are depression and anxiety, and those are important, those are bad, we need to get rid of those and work on that, but, like, we need a lot of people focus more on schizophrenia too, I think. And I think this book really makes you think about mental illness, and especially schizophrenia, like, what do people actually go through when they have schizophrenia. So I don't know. I like that real world aspect. This semester I have been studying history. We recently talked about the Cold War, and I didn't actually know that much about the Cold War going into this history class. I figured out that I don't like the Cold War. It's boring, but it's also really, really depressing and sad. But this whole book actually kind of reminded me of the Cold War in various aspects. A lot of people just, this has happened in many, if not all the wars, but people just become easily prejudiced against other nations. And, you know, in America we were very prejudiced against communists, and I'm not going to say communism is a good thing. I'm not going to say that, but we just judge people very quickly in that time, I think. In this book, the Earthens kind of just see the Lunars as being bad people because they can manipulate them. And yeah, that happens. They're bad sometimes, but I think it proves a point that not everybody lives up to the stereotype of being bad. You can't just label a whole nation as being evil because there are some nice people in there. And I think this even applies to today. Often, especially with the Syrian refugee crisis, a lot of the times we're just like, well, they're Syrian refugees, they're obviously terrorists, we can't let them in. Are they though? Are you stereotyping an entire group? Are you generalizing when you shouldn't be? Maybe, probably. I hope you enjoyed this review of Winter. I'm trying this new format where I'm like trying to dig deeper and really think more. I'm kind of gonna see how it works. I don't have very many books in my arsenal to review this way at the moment. This is the only one I've read recently, but I'm gonna try and do this more often with my reviews and give it a more sociological discussion aspect for it. And if you want to like comment, that would be really cool. If you have any real world connections or other books you think can relate to this kind of world, that would be awesome. I would appreciate you doing that. And as always, you can fangirl and comment and talk to me in the comments and all that jazz. But I really, really enjoyed Winter. It was so fulfilling. I'm very excited to read Stars Above. Yeah, and let me know what you think about this review, like setup, if you think I should add more, get rid of something, etc., etc. I would love to make these reviews more interesting and exciting rather than just me fangirling the whole time. If you're interested, I do have an interview up with Marissa Meyer on my channel. We talk about some Lunar Chronicles, talk about Heartless a little bit, so you should check it out. I'm just saying. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye!